In January of 1897, in Greenbrier County, West Virginia, a young woman was found dead in her home. A doctor examined her, briefly, and ruled the death natural causes. She was buried within days. Her mother did not believe it. What happened next is documented in trial records, newspaper coverage from the period, and a state historical marker that still stands in Greenbrier County today, a marker that makes an extraordinary claim, that this is the only known case in American legal history where a ghost's account is credited with helping convict a murderer. This is the story of Zona Hester Shue, and the mother who refused to let her daughter's death go unquestioned. Part 1. The Marriage and the Death. Elva Zona Hester married Erasmus Trout Shue, a blacksmith who had recently moved to Greenbrier County, in October 1896. Her mother, Mary Jane Hester, reportedly disapproved of the marriage from the start, though the specific reasons given vary across historical accounts. Some cite simply a mother's instinct about a man she barely knew. What is documented is that Trout Shue had been married twice before. His first marriage ended in divorce, with his wife citing cruelty. His second wife died under circumstances that were, at the time, attributed to an accident. Neither of these facts was thoroughly investigated before his marriage to Zona. On January 23, 1897, roughly 3 months into the marriage, a young boy sent to the Shue home on an errand found Zona's body. Trout Shue was reportedly the one who carried her upstairs and laid her out before anyone else arrived. The local doctor, George Knapp, examined her, but his examination was brief. Trout Shue was, according to accounts from the doctor himself, visibly distraught, cradling his wife's head throughout the examination in a way that made a full assessment of her neck and throat difficult to complete. The doctor initially listed the cause of death as everlasting faint, later revised to complications related to pregnancy. Zona was dressed for burial by her husband, in a high-necked, stiff-collared dress, with a veil covering her face and a scarf wound tightly around her neck. He reportedly told mourners the scarf was her favorite, and asked that nothing about her head or neck be disturbed during the viewing. Some accounts from those who attended note that he stayed close to the casket throughout, and appeared to physically prevent anyone from adjusting the scarf or veil. She was buried within days. Her mother was not convinced. Part 2. The Visitations. In the weeks following the burial, Mary Jane Hester told those around her that she had prayed, repeatedly, for her daughter to come back to her and reveal the truth about her death. According to Mary Jane's own later testimony, given under oath, her daughter's spirit visited her over 4 consecutive nights. In these visitations, Zona reportedly told her mother that Trout Shue had been violent with her, that he had broken her neck, and demonstrated this, according to Mary Jane's account, by turning her own head around in a way a living person could not. Mary Jane Hester took this account to the local prosecutor, John Alfred Preston. What's documented from this point forward is not that Preston believed in the visitation itself, but that Mary Jane Hester's persistence, combined with troubling details Preston had independently begun to notice, Trout Shue's behavior at the viewing, his prior marriages, the rushed nature of the original examination, was enough to convince him to formally reopen the case and request an exhumation. The state historical marker that stands in Greenbrier County today credits the mother's account specifically as the reason the case was reopened. It does not claim the ghost's testimony was presented to a jury as evidence, because, as the trial record shows, it wasn't. What it credits is that without Mary Jane Hester's refusal to accept the original ruling, there would likely have been no exhumation at all. Part 3. The Exhumation. On February 22, 1897, nearly a month after Zona's burial, her body was exhumed and a full autopsy was performed, with Trout Shue present and reportedly composed throughout, and detail multiple witnesses at the exhumation later described as unusual, given the circumstances. The autopsy findings were unambiguous. Zona Hester Shue's neck had been broken. Her windpipe was crushed. Bruising consistent with a hand gripping the throat was found on her neck, injuries entirely inconsistent with the natural causes ruling given weeks earlier, and entirely consistent with strangulation. Trout Shue was arrested within days. The physical, medical evidence recovered in that exhumation, not the visitation account itself, is what formed the legal basis for his prosecution. But it was Mary Jane Hester's insistence, tied directly to what she said her daughter had shown her, that caused the exhumation to happen at all. This is the detail that historians return to again and again when discussing this case. The ghost story is not what convicted Trout Shue in a courtroom. It's what got the case reopened in the first place. Without it, by every account available, Zona Hester Shue's death would have remained recorded as natural causes, and her husband would never have faced trial. Trout Shue's trial began in June 1897 and drew significant public attention throughout the region. The defense attempted to use Mary Jane Hester's account of the visitations against her, cross-examining her at length in an effort to portray her as an unreliable, grief-stricken witness whose entire case rested on an impossible claim. Trial records from the period show she held her account under this cross-examination without wavering. The jury, however, reached its verdict based on the autopsy findings, the inconsistencies in Trout Shue's behavior at the time of death and burial, and testimony regarding his prior marriages, not on the ghost story itself, which was never formally entered as evidence of guilt. Trout Shue was found guilty of murder and sentenced to life in prison. He narrowly escaped a death sentence. Some accounts suggest a portion of the jury was unwilling to impose capital punishment given the unusual nature of how the case had come to trial at all. He died in prison in 1900, during a measles epidemic that swept through the West Virginia State Penitentiary, having served only a few years of his sentence. Mary Jane Hester lived for decades afterward. She reportedly maintained, for the rest of her life, that her daughter had truly visited her, not as a story to be doubted, but as the plain truth of what had happened to her. Today, a state historical marker stands in Greenbrier County, West Virginia, placed by the state's Division of Culture and History. It reads, in part, that this is the only known case in which testimony from a ghost helped convict a murderer. It is one of the only pieces of paranormal folklore in the country given that level of official, state-sanctioned historical acknowledgement. A doctor ruled it natural causes. A husband arranged the burial quickly, and asked that no one touch the scarf around her neck. It was a grieving mother, refusing to accept an answer she knew, somehow, was wrong, who reopened the case that sent her daughter's killer to prison. Whether you believe Zona Hester truly visited her mother 4 nights in a row, or believe a mother's instinct simply needed a story to justify itself, one fact isn't up for debate. The state of West Virginia has put it in writing, on a permanent marker, for anyone to read. If you know a case where the truth came out because someone simply refused to stop asking questions, I want to hear about it. For new stories every day, subscribe. My channel Hollow Veins. Somewhere in Greenbrier County, that marker is still standing. You can go read it yourself.